My name is Margaret Leinen. I'm a paleo-oceanographer and paleoclimatologist. So I study the history of the ocean, the history of climate, how they interact. And I am a professor of oceanography at Scripps Institution of Oceanography at the University of California, San Diego. And I also have the privilege of serving as the director of Scripps Institution of Oceanography and vice chancellor for marine science at UC San Diego.
Wow, that's really impressive. What made you choose your career path?
I had been very interested in geology in high school, and I was fortunate to go to a high school that actually offered a course in geology. And so when I went away to college, I sort of stumbled around with some other kinds of science, chemistry, and so forth. I knew I wanted to be a scientist. And then I took a college geology course. And the faculty member who was in charge of that course had a custom of having an undergraduate student assistant. I took it during the spring term. And at the end of the spring, he came to me and he said, if you're interested, I'd like to have you be a student assistant for me next year. Not a teaching assistant, a research assistant. And so at the time, I was making money by working in the dish room at the dormitory. So I was wearing a white dress, and by the time that I finished, I smelled like the garbage. So going to do some research was just really, really attractive. And as I worked with him, he would send me to the library to get information about things, read them, and then he would ask my opinion about them. And I also helped with some work in the field because he was a geologist. And so that was really an opportunity for me for the first time to see what it would like to actually be a geologist and do that kind of work. And so I fell in love with it. I got an undergraduate degree in geology. And one of the things that I did was study rocks that form in water, and those are from sediments, sedimentary rocks. And this was long enough ago that there wasn't a lot of oceanography going on. And it seemed to me as though, as long as we were talking about sediments that formed close to shore, like beaches and deltas and rivers and so forth, that people knew what was happening today and could interpret the past. But when it came to the ocean, they really didn't know. So I thought, oh, I'll go off and study oceanography in graduate school. I'll learn about all this and then go back as a geologist. But I never went back. I fell in love with oceanography.
That sounds really cool. Was there any specific moments in your career that really inspired or motivated you?
Yeah, I think that I told you that my undergraduate experience doing research was amazing. And for example, the faculty member that I worked for was making these big maps of geology of a certain time period across the whole US. I told you he would have me go to the library and read up the research on a particular area. And when I would come back to him, he would say, well, where should we put the line around the boundary of this particular kind of rock or this particular environment? And he was relying on me to actually do the research. And it was my line that went on the map. And that's, it's a huge responsibility. He was going to publish that map. And that was really the time when I said, oh, I can do this. If this person trusts me to do this, I can do this. And then I think another time was the first time that I saw a female faculty member in this area. So there were no female faculty in the geology department. I was at University of Illinois, and I think there were, like 25, 30 faculty members. None of them were women. And they had a seminar series, and a woman who was a faculty member actually at Scripps, where I am now, came and gave a talk. And she was amazing. I could understand everything she said. She was, very confident. And that was the first time that I saw a woman be a researcher. And all of the men were asking her questions. Nobody was putting her down. So that was also really important for me to see that, that could be me. Then I think a third example is the first time I went to sea. So I was a beginning graduate student, and there was going to be a 1 week cruise. I was at Oregon State, and we were going to go into coastal waters in Oregon and do this field work. And we were going to take samples and so forth. And so I was just a brand new graduate student. I'd had one oceanography course in my life, and it was very, very general. And now I was going to go out. I had no idea what my experience would be. And so I went out and I was helping collect samples. I was helping to run the instruments that were bringing back data. And, at sea, we operate 24/7. So there were times when, it was the middle of the night and I was responsible for operating a certain instrument that was gathering data, and there was nobody else there. If I didn't do it right or whatnot, the data wouldn't be right. And so that too gave me this sense of, people trust me and they're counting on me. And so I think all of those examples were different kinds of examples, but they were ones where I could see that people like me could do it, that I could do it. And that was really empowering.
Yeah, that sounds like a really good experience.
Yeah.
So, when you initially entered your field, were there any struggles that made you reconsider your career choice? And also, if there were, how did you push through that?
Well, I said that I got interested in this when I took a geology course in college, and I'd had one in high school. Before this, I was going to be a chemist, and I was taking chemistry classes. They were all huge. There would be like 400 people in the class. My first chemistry class, there were only 5 women and there were 350 men. There weren't very many people like me. The discussion section that went along with that lecture, I was the only woman in it. That was a case where it was the exact opposite. There wasn't anybody that listened to me. The fact that I was doing very well in the class made no difference. I was never called on. So I went through this with chemistry for a while, and there were just all of these negative signals. So I went into another area of chemistry, and it was the same. And then I got sick, and I had to drop out of school just before finals in the spring. And I had to essentially, keep studying over the summer and then take finals when I came back. And, you forget a lot. And that was really, really a hard term. I felt like I didn't belong in chemistry and I didn't do as well on my finals as I thought I should. So that was when it was like, well, do I really belong here? I had to work summers for money to go to school. At the time, remember, I was working in the dish room, and it just seemed like, why am I doing this? And so I sort of flopped around, taking other courses, saying, oh, maybe I'll try microbiology, maybe I'll try something else. And I don't know why it never dawned on me to take a geology course, but, I was going to go off and do this. So it was when I was at my absolute lowest. And I said, I've really got to pull up my grade point average. I said, okay, I'm going to take easy courses for one semester, pull up my grade point average. So I'll take geology because I took it in high school and, I ought to be able to do really well in that. And then I took art history because I thought this would be easier than science. And I really loved that course. And instead of taking things that I thought, oh, I've got to take this, I took the things that I really wanted to take. And I got a straight A average that semester. It was so rewarding. It was like, oh, I was just in the wrong area. I'm a round peg and I was trying to fit into a square hole. But if I go after a round hole, everything's going to be fine. And I think things are a lot different now. Counseling, academic counseling for students is so much better. And, if you're struggling, there are lots of resources for you. And that really wasn't the case at that time. I could only see the academic counselor once at the beginning of the semester, and it didn't seem like there was anybody to go to. So I think that people will be caught sooner when they're, trying to do things that just don't work for them. But that was a big lesson, and lots of people say this. They say, go after the things that you love doing because that will make you love what you're studying. It'll make you love your job, which I do. And I think that sort of ambition and that pleasure from doing something that you really love go hand in hand. And if you can get both of those, then you're in good shape.
Yeah, that sounded like a really challenging experience. So, what do you perceive to be like the largest barrier or obstacle to female leadership or just like girls becoming leaders?
I still think the most challenging obstacle is giving girls and women examples of people like them. So, we do a lot more in high school now, women's sports, girls' sports. There was no women's professional basketball or soccer, there was nothing like that going on. There weren't so many fantastic, not just people in the arts, but people that are like directors of movies or producers of music, not just the singer that's out front, but the whole business has a lot more. And I think that those kinds of examples of not just the person singing, but the person who sings and has their own whole brand and whatnot, or the person that is, doing well in sports, or the person that maybe is like me that loves science, who is given opportunities to do science in high school, internships and research experiences and things that give them that leg up to be able to see themselves and understand what life will be like. And so we really need those experiences. And the thing that I still worry about is that it seems to me that fewer girls get those experiences than should.
Yeah, so like really just looking for role models or like opportunities.
Yeah. So I love programs like in our area, Sally Ride Science. It reaches out to girls about all kinds of science and uses the wonderful example of Sally Ride. She overcame obstacles and then she was an astronaut. And afterwards, she was a physicist. She had multiple careers too. And I think that's another thing that if you go into something and that doesn't work, there are lots of other opportunities. It doesn't mean, oh, you have to quit and there's no future. You just pivot. And there are lots of ways to help you pivot too.
Yeah. So, why do you think that diversity in a workplace is important and like in particular gender diversity?
Gender diversity is important because only women understand, some of the physical and historic things that are issues for women. A man does not understand what it feels like to be pregnant, the mood swings that go along with it, and just how tired you are. I remember when I was pregnant and I was in undergraduate school at the time, and I was washing dishes and I was really pregnant. You have to lean over and it was just like if I could just push this to the side so I could get closer to this sink, life would be interesting. And it's all of those things. And I remember I'm a cancer survivor. I'm a breast cancer survivor. And the first female boss that I ever had, I was already a dean, and she was the provost of the university, so the academic head of the university. And she was a breast cancer survivor. And so I had chemotherapy, I lost all my hair, I had a wig. Wigs are wonderful, but during hot weather, you sweat under there. And my boss could understand what I was going through. And I'll tell you a hysterical story. I was part of an international science team. I was dean, but I was also on this international committee. And we met in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. And one of the iconic things in Rio is the statue of Christ the Redeemer. It's a big tourist attraction. So the whole group went up to Christ the Redeemer. I had on my wig. It was blowing like crazy. I had to hold on to my wig to keep it from blowing off. And I came back and I told my boss about this. Who else would understand what you were going through? And, maybe it's another female faculty member, maybe it's another woman who is a head of housing and dining at the university, or, somebody else like that, but only somebody that has had an experience like yours. Doesn't have to be cancer, it could be pregnancy, or it could be, some other thing that has to do with being a woman. They can understand and they can sympathize without excusing you. They can say, okay, here's what you can do, to manage that, as opposed to saying, oh, you poor thing, go home, don't worry, or, oh, maybe you're in the wrong field. And that is so important.
Yeah. So, like moving on to questions like more geared towards high schoolers, what traits do you have that help you deal with the adversity of being a woman in male-dominated fields? And also, how would you suggest someone cultivate those traits?
Well, I think one thing is that you have to learn how to stick up for yourself without having a chip on your shoulder. So, just like anything else in life, if you're dealing with adversity, let's think about sports. If you're not the best person on your soccer team, but you love to play, you don't want somebody to say, oh, that's all right, dear. We'll put you in this difficult situation and, make you even more concerned. So that's being realistic with you. But if it's like, okay, we're not going to put you in right now because you're not the best goaltender and, we're down by one, but we are going to put you in at the beginning of the next game so you can get a lot of experience. So that sense of helping you deal with what you're dealing with without either patronizing you or without encouraging you to go through life angry about what your limitations are or how you're being treated. There's a difference between standing up for yourself and saying, excuse me, I'm a goaltender too, and I haven't had a chance to play, and that's not fair. So I want a chance to play so that I can improve, as opposed to approaching that by attacking somebody else. Like, oh, I'm going to attack the goaltender that is really good and somehow, undermine her. So it's learning how to, and having people help you learn how to manage all of those things. Stand up for yourself, but not take it out on other people.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. So, do you think it's important for a high schooler to like consider gender imbalances when selecting a career, or like how much weight should someone put on that aspect? Because I know I've gotten like some mixed advice about that. Because like some people tell me, oh, like don't let anything hold you back, but like other people say it might be like naive to think like that.
I think that that really has a lot to do with how well equipped you are to deal with it. So I wouldn't use that as an excuse not to go into a field that may be dominated by men. But if you're going to do that and you are a person who's insecure about yourself, get help. Go into it and say, okay, I'm going to find somebody who can be a coach for me, whether that's a parent or a teacher that I had previously who knows how good I am, or whether it's a counselor of some other sort. But give yourself the best chance to be successful in that situation. Because if you're in an area where there aren't very many women, you will stand out just because you are a woman. And that will draw attention to you, both for the good and also in places where you may not be as competitive as somebody else. And you have to deal with both of those. And so give yourself every advantage that you can. I like these sports analogies because now women, they are in sports. So you wouldn't go into the game without all the proper tools. You wouldn't go to a tennis championship and not have a racket that you think is the best racket for your serve and for your stroke. So don't go into a job without those tools and the best possible tools that will help you make it through.
Okay, so it's like really just different for like every person. Yeah.
Yeah, so you're going to, again, to use the tennis analogy, you're going to have to play some people that are going to be better than you. And on any given day, you might be able to beat them, but give yourself every advantage. Do your practicing, have the best tools, and keep up that positive. You're never going to succeed if you say, oh, I'm playing Serena Williams, so of course I'm going to lose. And that you can use that with the job too. Give yourself every advantage, do your homework for your job, and then, keep that upbeat demeanor. And when you do feel bad about things or you haven't succeeded, use those friends or family or coaches or counselors or whatever to say, this is what I did. I feel so bad about it. And they can help you say, oh, it was just this one time, or, oh, here's what you could do so that next time you're prepared.
So for my final question, what advice would you give to other women and like especially high schoolers who want to enter your career field?
I would say for high schoolers, first of all, every aspect of what you learn in high school will help you with this field, whether it's the writing program, because I like to say, a lot of us are writers. We have to write papers, we have to write summaries, we have to write press releases, etc. So writing, obviously the sciences and math, but also all of those other pieces, understanding government and the way it works, understanding other fields, the arts, all of it will assist you in the field. And I think that the other thing is trying to take advantage of any experience that you can get where you're actually working with a scientist or you have the opportunity to do hands-on work, whether that's in your school, whether it's an after school activity or a weekend activity, or whether it's at a company, helping out an aquaculture company or helping out at, some other company that's related to the field, or whether it's having an opportunity to do an internship at a university or a nonprofit. So any of those that will give you some more experiences, and it will also strengthen your muscles for being a person that is learning and how to learn in that environment, how to deal with difficult people. You're going to deal with difficult people no matter what you do. And if you had some experiences that they'll help you so that later on it'll be much easier to deal with difficult people.
Okay, so really just making the most out of like all of your opportunities.
Yes.
Okay, so those are all the questions that I had for today. And like, thank you so much for meeting with me. I really enjoyed talking to you.
Thanks for the chance to talk with you. And I hope that everybody that sees this will take heart and say, I can do what I want to do. And I'm just going to go out and find people that will help me do it.